Dad, what does low punny inflation mean? So, after a long, hilarious, embarrassing, and ridiculous fight for Speaker of the House after Matt Gaetz and crew kicked out Kevin McCarthy for attempting to be bipartisan in the slightest degree possible, we have now gotten a new Speaker of the House named Mike Johnson. Speaking about his wife here while getting inaugurated.
She spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to the Lord, and she's a little worn out.
And he's such an interesting guy. He kind of looks like even Stephen Colbert. You're right. He does look like he really does look like evil Stephen Colbert in like the worst way possible. But Mike Johnson is a guy who's kind of unknown in the Republican Party. Not too many people talk about him. He's from Louisiana, born and raised, and then he also represents Louisiana as well while being a House member. This guy, even though he's not known that much, doesn't mean that you don't know of him. And I'm not talking about necessarily who he is or where he's from or what he does. I mean his work. You completely know about his work, and we'll talk about that here in a moment because he's made his mark on U.S. history for every bad way that you could possibly imagine. Now, this guy, he's been in politics for a long time. Born in 1972, he worked as an attorney in a private practice for the Alliance Defending Freedom, and we'll talk about these guys in a moment, but remember these guys, the Alliance Defending Freedom. At the ADF, he advocated for sodomy laws and criminalizing homosexuality, writing an amicus brief which opposed the eventual U.S. Supreme Court ruling on Lawrence v. Texas. If you don't remember what Lawrence v. Texas is, that is the Supreme Court ruling that said that states can't criminalize like gay sexual relations, basically, like gay intercourse, gay course, as I like to call it. They can't ban. He basically wrote that the Supreme Court should be able to, the Supreme Court should make it legal for states to be able to discriminate against gay people and say that they should not be able to have sex with people that they like and don't like. And he's even sat on the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission for Southern Baptist, the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, this guy is somebody who, if you talk about fundamentalist evangelical Christian, this is exactly who this Mike Johnson guy is. Completely straight up backwards, go way back in time, and that's the way he thinks society should be run. And don't believe me when I say that, believe him.
You know, truth has been replaced as the greatest virtue in society by tolerance. Well, we're the inherently intolerant ones who say, wait a minute, life is sacred because we're endowed by our Creator. We're certain inalienable rights. We have to stand up for those. Oh, you bigot. Can't you be a little more open-minded? Come on. That's so like 18th century, you know. Well, they told us that if we didn't maintain those 18th century values, that the Republic would not stand. And so this is the condition we find ourselves in today.
Those 18th century values. What could that be? Women don't have the right to vote. Minorities don't have any civil rights. Or maybe he will just claim that it's, oh, we just love Jesus and whatnot. Maybe that's what it is. Rights equal bigotry. Well, for a lot of these types of people, rights and liberties means the right and liberty to be able to take other people's right and liberty away. Like things along the lines of not being able to go shopping where you want, being banned from many public spaces, having your right to even of movement in places where you can be completely usurped by somebody else. That's what they mean by rights and liberties, the rights to subject other people to a worse quality of life. That's what they always mean when they say things along these lines. Because what rights and liberties do Christians in this country not have? That's the real question. Because they're going to try and say that minorities, black people, gay people, women, these people don't have any problems with any of the rights that they don't have. But tell me a right that the Christians in this country haven't had. This country was literally built by a lot of Christians by a lot of Christians on the back of many minorities specifically for them to have at least some extra rights due to persecution, only for these people to come up here and talk about how we need more persecution, but for other people, not them. And speaking of that, that's something that he's believed for a long time. This video was not recent. This video was actually filmed in 2013. So this has been something that he's been, that he's liked for a very, very long time. And it shows through his work through the ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. And just remember that name. Freedom is the word that they would like to use here. But we'll read through some of the things that they believe and that they've pushed for, and you tell me how much freedom you think these people genuinely believe in. So the Alliance Defending Freedom, they're a long-standing anti-minority Christian fundamentalist group who's behind almost every single bad decision that you've seen the judicial system or the legislative system make against minorities. I'm 100% serious with you about that. They are behind all of it. This is the group. If you see something bad happening to minorities in America, the Alliance Defending Freedom, 9 times out of 10 is one of the groups behind there, if not like the number one group behind there, funding it, pushing the laws, getting the lawsuits through, making these types of things happen. They're behind almost all of it. Like I said, like when it came to the amicus brief to stop the Supreme Court from ruling that you can't ban gay people from dating and marrying and like, you know, having relations with other gay people. That's what they mean by freedom. What freedom do Christians gain by stopping other people from having sex with people that they want, another grown adult? These Republicans are more happy with trying to stop gay people from having relations with other consenting adults than they are banning child marriage. But I guess that's just not very high on the list of things that they care about. That's very interesting. ADF attorneys are behind cases such as cases prohibiting same-sex marriages and supporting businesses in the wedding industry who refuse service to gay marriages. So remember that gay wedding cake Supreme Court kerfuffle? The ADF was behind it. ADF lawyers also wrote the model for the Mississippi anti-abortion legislation involved in Dobbs v. Jackson Women Health Organization, the decision that overruled the 49-year-old precedent of Roe v. Wade, that Roe v. Wade established on the right to an abortion. So they're also behind overturning Roe v. Wade and abortion rights in the country. These people, the same group that Mike Johnson has been representing and a part of for decades at this point. And I want to scroll down here a little bit to this because there's even more on these types of people. Members of the ADF also authored model legislation for bathroom bills in the United States aimed at reducing transgender people's rights and abilities to be able to use the bathroom. And in April 2022, ADF aligned lawyers defended a professor in Shawnee State University in Ohio who refused to use trans students' preferred pronouns and helped him get a $400,000 settlement from the university. And also in Europe, because they're not even national, they're trying to become global. And Europe, the ADF International also supported a mandatory genital surgery and sterilization for trans people before they were allowed to change their gender marker on their government ID. Now, in some places with these other laws, they've been able to promote, but thankfully in Europe, they weren't able to get this stuff through. These people have even worked, because like somebody said something about Uganda. Lucky, you said something about Uganda, and that reminded me. These people have even worked in Africa to help spread more disease. That's actually what one of it's like. Imagine a position that a human being wants to take to like make society better, and bro's like, let's just do the exact opposite. That would go crazy. And so, yeah, they worked in Uganda to overturn the government's ability to be able to ban large gatherings to stop Ugandans from dying of COVID at the height of the pandemic with their anti-COVID lockdown policies as well. And in June 2023, one of their most recent actions, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Christian website designer. Remember this? When the conservative Supreme Court finally ruled for conservatives that they're able to discriminate against like minorities as long as they say that there's like a religious reason to. The ADF was behind that one as well. This person who did not want to provide service to gay people, to allegedly gay people. The case was represented by the ADF. It wasn't even like they supported it or they were there in the room or they were listening. They're the ones who brought the case. They're the ones who brought it to the Supreme Court. They're the ones that made the argument. It's this people. These guys are doing anything and everything that they can to make sure that minorities in this country have less rights and people die more of disease by stopping the government from being able to provide any restrictions during public health crises to ensure that at least some amount of people can remain safe. That's their number one thing to do, and that's something that Mike Johnson, new Speaker of the House for the Republican House majority, the small majority that they have, supports, believes in, and has even had his hand in personally. This is the guy. This is the guy that we're talking about here. All right? And this is what he has to say about these types of people, gay people specifically. This is crazy. And this is a direct quote from Mike Johnson. Homosexual relationships are inherently unnatural, and studies clearly show that they are ultimately harmful and costly to everyone. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine walking around daily and thinking about how two gay people loving each other apparently makes your life, that just makes your life worse? Study. You know about those studies that say that gay people are evil and stinky and make everybody's life worse? Just thinking about how all that the gay sex energy. You don't know that like when gay people meet up, when two gay people meet up, the energy that comes off of that goes to the king gay, and whoever the king gay, it changes day to day. But king gay, he collects all of that energy of gay people's movements, and then he's able to disperse that energy like the deacons of the deep in a large gay energy ball that makes everybody's life worse. You know, it brings drought. It's possibly the cause of climate change, starvation, you know, you stub your toe. It just brings evil upon the world. And that's just basically it. They hit you with the gay nuke. And it's just like Goku. Yeah, it's the spirit gay. The gay bomb. It just keeps making everybody's life worse. And it's just so sad when it happens. Society cannot give its stamp of approval to such a dangerous lifestyle. If we change marriage for this tiny modern minority, we will have to do the same for every deviant group. And yep, you know exactly what's coming. People who are polyamorous, pedophiles, and others will be next in line to claim equal protection. They already are. You know how it is. First, you're like, oh, what if one human being, what if one consenting adult can, you know, have relations with another consenting adult? And then what happens after that? Pedophilia. It's a very clear line, you see. He is very smart and he knows exactly what he's saying. Right? But if this is the type of guy who's going to talk about people being weird around children, if we're going to talk about being weird around children, okay? I don't think this is the guy who I'd want to be the forefront of that, you know, if I was in the Republican room about messaging.
With covenant within your home. And so why is that such an effective tool? Why do parents need to put this into their home?
Yeah, that's great question. We probably could have called this more appropriately a war on the darkness of technology, because there are some good things with technology, of course. I mean, you know, the Bible apps we all love, we broadcast our services, you know, on our social media, and there's some very positive things, but there's also, as Clint's pointed out aptly, some really dark things. So Covenant Eyes is the software that we've been using a long time in our household. I first learned about it at, I think, a Promise Keepers event in the early 2000s. I think it was developed in about the year 2000. But it's the largest accountability software that there is, and there's some paperwork out there on the table that I think everybody may have picked up on the way in. If not, go get it. It's a subscription-based. I mean, we don't make any money on this. I'm telling you, we use it. Okay, I'm endorsing it because I'm a user. It's about $15 a month, $16 a month, something like that. And you get up to 10 devices. And what it is accountability software. So men in a church, you know, men's Bible study groups will do it. That's how it's presented at Promise Keepers. But they also mention, hey, when your kids become teenagers, especially if you have boys, dads, they're talking to the guys at this event, you might want to think about doing this with your sons. And so we've been doing that. And so what it does real simply is it has an algorithm and software. It's way above my head how it works, but it scans, you obviously opt into it, but it scans all the activity on your phone or your devices, your laptop, tablet, what have you. We do all of it. and then it sends a report to your accountability partner. So my accountability partner right now is Jack, my son, right? And so he's 17. So he and I get a report of all the things that are on our phones or all of our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you my son he's got a clean slate, all right? Yeah. But
so, man who clearly, specifically, and explicitly shares porn searching data with his son of his own, and he watches his son. So they're back to back, but instead of like having guns, they're watching each other's porn intake to make sure that it's at an all-time low, 0. No porn here. He's got his eyes on his phone, he's got his eyes on his laptop, he's got his eyes on his computer, on the tablet, and his son has the same. So anything that this guy searches up, he's able to just have readily access to completely, which is so weird. Now I can understand it in one way, maybe like monitoring your child's internet usage. I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but sharing your porn, like your possible porn intake with your son so he can see it, so you all can you imagine that, like, Dad, what's this? And it's like, and it's like Pokemon Deep Throat. He's like, son, you don't understand. Like, these like leftist degenerates. They were just like sending me so much stuff. I follow Ted Cruz on Twitter, and it's just, crazy stuff can like pop up sometimes. Listen, son, and he's just like, Dad, I told you, you're in rehab for the Pokemon pictures. You can't do that anymore. He falls to his knees. But son, Vaporeon is so, and he just slaps him right there. Dad, what does low punny inflation mean? Well, son, when a Pokemon trainer loves his Pokemon very much. Son, please. Right? And sticking on children for a second, I want to stick on children real quick, because this guy is a big, family guy, family values guy, loves the children. Children are like, they're the peak of humanity. They're something that we always need to take care of. You hear a lot of conservatives saying stuff like this, and this guy also is no different with his Christian fundamentalism when it comes to his ideas on children. And obviously that would bring him to his ideas on abortion. Clearly we would all imagine that he's against it, but how against it and in what way is something that he is specifically different in compared to other conservatives in the country. Now, we've heard some really crazy, insane takes when it comes to women's reproductive rights. Ever since Roe v. Wade was ruled, and since Dobbs was ruled, there's a lot of arguments that conservatives have made to force women and children to give birth. There's a lot of arguments, but I'm going to say that Mike Johnson's is the craziest, highest ranking person that I've seen make insane takes like this in my entire life. All right. Genuinely the craziest, because you need to remind yourself, this man, he's not just some random weirdo conservative sitting somewhere in some backwater district in Boofood, Louisiana. This guy is now specifically third in line for the president. He is one of the most important people in the country at the moment when you become Speaker of the House. And this is what this guy has to say about women's reproductive rights. Many women use abortion as a form of birth control, in certain segments of society. It's just shocking and sad, but this is where we are. And when people say that, like, this is a form of birth control, conservatives think it means that, like, women are putting their legs up in the men's public toilet and then having like 57 guys run through them and leave a snail trail on their way out. That's what they genuinely believe when they say, like, oh, they're just using it as birth control, and then they go to Planned Parenthood and they get a tattoo with every kill, like they have and then they talk about how they have a positive KD ratio with the girls on Saturdays when they meet up for their weekly abortion roundup. Yeah, their abortion roundup score count, and the girl with the highest abortion score gets a one candle gift card to Bath and Body Works or something. This is what they genuinely believe. But no, it was just a form of birth control, as in it controls you giving birth, which is just a factual statement. It just is. And nobody can deny that. It really is. But moving on. He says, when you break up the nuclear family, when you tell a generation of people that life has no value, no meaning, and that it's expendable, then you wind up with school shooters. So just to be completely sure, just in case nobody's lost, just to make sure nobody's lost here, he's specifically saying that abortion has led to school shooters because when you do abortion, that's when you think that life has no value, and so there's no reason why you shouldn't be shooting up a school full of children. Listen, if the girls are okay with getting shot up with children and then taking the pill, then think about it. The kids who do make it and grow up, why shouldn't they shoot up children in school? He's very smart. He's very stupid, actually. This has been something that we've talked about before. It just does not make any sense. It's him post hoc rationalizing bad things in society and saying it must be due to people not going to church that much anymore. It must be due to the political beliefs of the people who he dislikes. But in all actuality, the reason why people do this is, and the reason why abortion has been dropping ever since Roe v. Wade was realized, is because that there's a specific reason, whether it be health or money or mental state, or I just don't believe that I think a normal person would believe that there's no reason for somebody who can't and doesn't want to be a parent should be a parent. Okay, as somebody who's grown up seeing and knowing people with parents who very kind of clearly seems like doesn't want them, I don't want people to grow up with parents that like don't want them. Does it suck to have somebody with the potential to come into the world and be a human being but then stop that? Sure. I think it's way worse to gamble with two people dying, with like the baby dying in childbirth and the mother dying on the operating table, when you could just do an abortion and stop a life from coming into the world to begin with. But that's just me, and it seems like most of America and most people across the world also believe in some form of that. All right, and that just makes sense. There's a lot of people out there. A conservative, if you ask a staunch conservative on this issue, they're going to tell you straight up that they would prefer 3 people dying in like a situation like forced pregnancy, we're just gonna call it that for the video, rather than having just one abortion be administered. Okay, like specifically, I remember when I was talking to Matt Walsh, Alec asked a question about abortion, and he was like, when it comes to assault of like a 10-year-old or something that actually happened in Ohio, and people ask to see if like an abortion is actually the right decision here, Matt Walsh said, no, don't, because the baby is evidence of the assault taking place and not like any other evidence that you could possibly get, not like an assault kit or like testimony or eyewitness understanding of what happened. No, specifically it has to be the baby. And he would rather like the 10-year-old perish in pregnancy, the baby perish because it was born like prematurely or in a body that should not be old enough, that is not old enough to like give birth, and also execute the assaulter. Bro is 100%. He was like, I'd much rather have gamble with 3 people dying in this situation than for one couple-month-old zygote to be removed from the uterine wall. That's what these people genuinely believe. I find it hard to talk to a lot of conservatives about this issue because when it comes down to it, people dying isn't something that's genuinely on their mind that they kind of care about. It's more about control over women's bodies, punishing women for having relations that they don't approve of, or with guys that they don't like, or in ways that they don't like, or anything along those lines, than it is about genuinely protecting like the sanctity of life or something, because a lot of the times they would rather have somebody genuinely be harmed and have children genuinely be forced to go through this type of trauma than and completely for the rest of their lives. boost the amount of suffering that they go through. And this is, and that I've never seen a conservative really empathize with the idea of like somebody who's the victim of assault not wanting to go to the police. They usually chastise and get mad at those people, and then they blame it on like women and people who've been assaulted, that, oh, it's your fault that these like people who assault are able to run rampant because you never bring those cases through it, or you drop those cases, without ever thinking with their mind about how you could possibly feel about like how somebody who's in that situation could possibly feel. They just don't think about it. They don't care. It's not important to them. What's important to them is making sure that they either punish this person or live in this like force this type of culture where you're forced to give birth, and that will hopefully change the culture over time to have a more conservative future. They view that person, that womb, that fetus as a political tool more than they do a human, and that proves through their disregard for what happens after the baby is born, and how they constantly are trying to pull back Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, let the child tax credit roll over, all of these types of things. They couldn't care less about it because that was never their goal. Look at what their actual goals are, what they care about. And when you realize that, you'll realize that this whole idea about protecting the sanctity of life is nothing more than just a tool for control of people that they want to control, because they always think that like women are the ones who change society through them being able to like give birth and whatever. And this also talks on to like the idea of like women not wanting to have kids with like conservatives and stuff, but we'll talk about that sometime later. But this guy, this isn't like a one-off thing. This is something he genuinely believes, and he's riffed on and expanded on, because not only is he like super pro-gun, so we can't ever blame firearms or something for he can't like blame the proliferation of just normal people having firearms that could lead them to do things that they never thought they were capable of before that gun was put in their hands, right? But it has to be something else. And for this guy, it has to be the moral failing of Christianity falling in the country or something, or abortion, or even possibly, yep, that's right, evolution. People say, how can a person go into a schoolhouse and shoot their classmates? Johnson asked to the audience. Because we taught a couple generations now of Americans that there's no right and wrong. And we can even just listen to that right here.
Because as collectively as Americans, we began to get together in growing numbers and thumb our nose at the Creator and say, we don't believe that anymore. We're rejecting the founders' natural law philosophy in favor of moral relativism, and we are going down another path. Now, what we tolerate in moderation, our children excuse in excess. What happens when you fast forward another 30 or 40 years? Well, here's a picture's worth 1,000 words. Go to the next one for me. I mean, we know that we're living in a completely amoral society. And so people say, how can a young person go into their schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates? Because we've taught a whole generation, a couple of generations now of Americans, that there is no right and wrong, that it's about survival of the fittest, and you evolve from the primordial slime. Why is that life of any sacred value? Because there's nobody sacred to whom it's owed.
That's true, guys. Anybody up thinking about how they don't matter because they come from the primordial slime? Anybody up repping the primordial slime? Anybody up thinking about how they their home belongs to the primordial ooze? You're still pretty young. Do you feel like your schooling told you nothing is wrong? No, that didn't happen. But to him, if it's not specifically stated in the Bible, then it's not something that's worth genuinely believing or genuinely holding or genuinely teaching. That's why he says stuff like that. I jerk off to the primordial slime. Yo, chill out. Survival of the fittest is a misunderstood quote. He's talking like he thinks your average person is like an anime villain who believes strength is all that ever matters. Power. No, bro, that's you actually, not us. It's so weird. Y'all want to listen to a little bit more of this? Check this part out.
Now, some of y'all were around in the late 60s. You remember that, what that was about. The countercultural revolution, Woodstock and drugs and peace and free love and all that, but more about the undermining of the foundations of religion and morality. Because if you remember, in the late 60s, we invented things like no-fault divorce laws. We invented the sexual revolution. We invented radical feminism. We invented legalized abortion in 1973, where the state, the government, sanctions the killing of the unborn. All these things happen because as collectively as Americans, we began to get together in growing numbers and thumb our nose at the Creator.
So yeah, that's what he said before. And I feel like playing it like this tells a lot about how it's not just one thing. It's everything that has moved away from those 18th century values. If it's not something that we kind of believed in the 18th century, he just doesn't care for it. Maybe he doesn't care about witch burnings. Maybe he's not somebody who would necessarily do that. But with a lot of things, yeah, genuinely, he would believe it. And there's a lot of conservatives who I've seen specifically talk about this. Michael Knowles specifically said he wanted to go back even further. He said not only would he want the 18th century values, he wanted to go back to the 1500s. That's how far back he was thinking. And I mean, some people even would go back to the ideas of like the 1200s. Or less, maybe even 300 BC. Who knows? Just go, maybe even 2000 BC, and we just go back to the age of throwing, of like smashing two stones together and go ooh, ooh, around fire. Who knows? Possibly. What I do know is that he hates how society has moved to the point where, if I'm going to be honest with you, he hates America. All right, he hates America. All of these people hate America. They're un-American. And now I have like a lot of my obviously lefty audience will talk about, oh, but America never stood for this, that. Listen, I get it. I'm not talking about what America actually did. I'm talking about what America is supposed to stand for and those ideals that are supposed to be embodied in the American consciousness. But these types of people will talk about how the first Congress or the first Congresses after the founding of the United States, how they ran America for how we should run America, or what they said about how they want to run America. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Even some of the founding fathers said trying to force the future America to hold by this exact same values of the past America is like forcing a grown man to wear the shirt that he had as a boy. And I think that is so incredibly apt as somebody who was born so long ago talking. We were children in the sense of this American experiment. Like, he's going to talk about how we're like a super young country. We are, right? But even then, we were babies, real babies, fetuses even. We could have been aborted so easily, in fact, right? And so, with that being known, we were never supposed to be held to the exact same standards of the first Congress and the people who first ran America. We weren't supposed to be held to those standards at all. There's no reason why we should, because if we should, then they would have put it in the Constitution. They would have made it so it is an unalienable thing, something that shouldn't change. Something like America being forced to be a Christian nation is not something that it was supposed to be. Now, the first Congress may have wanted that. Some of the first Congress, maybe congressmen, who knows? A lot of those people were also slave drivers. Okay, so I don't think that these people are necessarily the number one most moral people that we need to be pulling our positions from. If I'm going to be honest with you, it's one thing to believe in like some possible rights that somebody should have. It's another thing to be, torturing, assaulting, and keeping human beings as like labor pets and tools, right? And animals. That's another thing. That's a hugely different thing. At the end of the day, they don't like the idea of what America was founded on, which is, at the end of the day, progress. It is a government made specifically to progress. The old ways of government, that being feudalism or monarchy or dictatorship, these ways of running society were not built to make change. They were built to keep the things the same. And while, is America perfect? No, it's not. And did we completely succeed? No, we didn't. But that's the purpose of the Constitution. It's supposed to be a living document. It's not dead. Conservatives want to read the Constitution like it's the Bible, because in this country that we have at the moment, there's no way of us putting through another constitutional amendment to change it. But in past America, that was absolutely a thing that could happen, and that's why there's so many amendments on the books for the Constitution at the moment. But that change, that progress, that is specifically against conservative ideals, the country becoming more inclusive, changing the way that it thinks about things, expanding rights and liberties to other people, was the first Congress able to do that? No, they didn't. That's why they're not perfect. And that's why they're in the past. And that's why we're here. But they don't want to believe that. It goes against what they genuinely believe. And so that's why this country was never supposed to be a conservative country. When the Constitution was made, it was probably one of the most progressive legal documents in a sitting government anywhere. And even to this very day, it still very much is. Now, is it the most progressive? No, but it's pretty far up there when it comes as compared to other European nations, compared to African and Asian nations. It very much is super progressive, and that's what they hate about it. And that's why, even though they rep the idea of being super pro-American, they never have and never will be. And it's just weird. That's why he hates all of these ideas of new ways of thinking about society and new legal and social justice and rights and liberties for new people, because that's never something that he pushed for. He likes the idea, he likes the imagined purpose and idea of America more than he loves the actual thing. And that's why he's always against it, right? And that's why he's pushing for laws that not even the people building the Constitution put in the Constitution. If these things are supposed to be things that are like fundamental core to what America should be, then why wasn't it put in the Constitution? Why? It's because that's not actually the goal. They're missing, and this is why they love to advocate for unborn children, and this is why they love to advocate on what the ideas of the founding fathers would be, because it's one of the easiest people to advocate for or rep or say are in your corner are, what is it? They even do it with Martin Luther King. Who is it? What is it? That's right, dead people. It's so easy to advocate for dead people or say that dead people would believe something that you, a living person, believes, because you know why? They can't talk back. They can't say that you're wrong. Those people can't come out and we can't ask them whether or not they're wrong because they're dead. And so they can put whatever words they want in their mouth and it'll just fall right out because they don't have the jaw strength to keep it up because they're dead. They're dead. They shove words in their mouth and they say, look what they said when it comes dribbling out because their neck's hanging and they're dead. But they're going to sit here and tell you that they're going to be advocating for them. And that's just, that's the real world. It just doesn't make any sense, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, in the sense of it being smart, but it makes sense because it's super easy and it's a great political tactic to just claim that people who are dead completely believe what you do because they'll never talk back. And when asked about these types of things, and this is what gets me so mad about these types of people, is because he's going to sit here and say he's so proud of his political positions, but once he's in the public eye and once he's actually talking to people and once he's genuinely in a leadership position, he's going to back off a lot of his points. Take a look at this.
I want to talk about some social issues. You've got a lot of critics who say that you are wildly out of step with the American people. Let's talk abortion first. One of the groups opposing you says this: he wants a total abortion ban with no exceptions. He supported bans that would not only criminalize abortion, but ban IVF treatments and common forms of birth control, and that you voted against access to contraception. Where are you on these issues? Is that an accurate assessment of where you are? Because that's not in step with the American people.
No, Shannon, look, I'm pro-life. I've said very clearly, I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe in the sanctity of every single human life. So I come to Congress with deep, personally held convictions. But guess what? So do my 434 other colleagues in the House. Everyone comes to Congress with their deeply held convictions. But the process here is that you make law by consensus. And I've not brought forward any measure to address any of those issues. Right now, our priorities are funding the government, handling these massive national security priorities that we have in crises around the globe, and taking care of changing and reforming how Congress works. That's what we're going to do. Listen, prior to the modern time, until recently, actually, almost all of our nation's leaders openly acknowledged that they were also Bible-believing Christians. This is not something that should cause great unrest, okay? It's just that Washington right now, what you're seeing, Washington and the Associated Press Corps are engaging with a leader who openly acknowledges faith and the foundational principles of our country.
Okay,
I think this is a healthy discussion, but it doesn't affect how we run Congress.
To be clear, though,
It absolutely does affect Congress, and all those things that they said about him were true. It's a great politician tactic how somebody will say something that they actually have said, done, and believe, and when asked if that's something that they have said, done, or believe, they'll say no, and then go on a long rambling speech about about something completely different, then come back around and say, yes, it is something that I actually believe. Well, back in like the 1800s, believing the things that I do about women wasn't really that bad. Yeah, I bet, buddy. We don't, unfortunately, unless you have a time machine, and to go back in time to this 1800s America that you want to live in so bad, then you don't live in 1800s America. We don't have 1800s America values, and we shouldn't either, because that's not how America works.
Against fertility treatments and access to contraception, would you?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
I don't think so. Listen, what, do you not remember what you voted for? And the answer is yes, he has. Actually, there are bills that contain that he specifically supported, especially the nationwide abortion ban is something that he supports and wants to be implemented in office. Like, this guy is just lying through his teeth about what he believes, and the last election is proof why. Because when conservatives tell people what they genuinely believe, then people don't want to vote for them. Donald Trump made them think that they have enough riz with the American people to be able to tell people exactly what they believe, and that it's going to work out well for them. And they're realizing election after election after election that no, that's not how that works. Only Donald Trump could do that, because he's silly sometimes, and he's running up against people who are even worse than him. At least implicitly. He's explicitly bad, but at least the people who he's running against were implicitly worse and felt more establishment than he did, even though he was the puppet master, asking people to not vote for the puppets but him, because he's not controlled. He's just the one doing all the controlling, telling people to say the things that he says that he's going to clown on them for repeating that he's paid for them to say in office. It just doesn't make any sense. This is who these people are. They'll just lie to you. And that's why they'll switch up so quickly when they get into office, is because they can't win if you just tell people what they genuinely believe. And this is something that and I'm going to tell you this right now, this guy is crazy. He'll find any and every reason to, and we can talk about this in a second, any and every reason to blame society, women, progressives, feminists for every social ill in society. Here's another one.
Roe v. Wade gave constitutional cover to the elective killing of unborn children in America, period. You think about the implications of that on the economy. We're all struggling here to cover the bases of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all the rest. If we had all those able-bodied workers in the economy, we wouldn't be going upside down and toppling over like this. Listen,
the gentleman,
I will not yield. I will not.
He goes on to just keep screeching about how abortion is so bad and evil. Basically, just to understand what he's saying here, they're in a conference at the moment about conservatives wanting to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security because they claim that it's going to be completely bankrupt and they need to be able to cut it so everything doesn't fall apart. That's why your grandpa and grandma need to have their Social Security checks cut, because they don't want to put any more money into the American people. So the reason why he's saying that it needs to be cut is abortion. Women keep not having babies, and so because of that, we don't have any young people anymore to pay into Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, meaning that we just have to cut it. All these silly women just aren't filled with 18 babies by the time they're 12, and that's just like a massive failing for them. And so, sorry guys, we're gonna have to take away your grandma's checks. Maybe she can get a job at Walmart, who knows? Think about that next time you take your plan B, huh? Mike Johnson realizes that he's gonna have to take away your future because you took your plan B. Congratulations, woman, for ruining society. And you may be wondering, like, what is with this guy wrapping up everything into, like, all these problems he's had with like progressives, social issues and whatnot, and the left. The reason is because I've seen this recently, is that a lot of conservatives and a lot of people in general, when you talk to them about one issue, and you may have seen this through some of our debates, when you talk to them about one issue, they'll like bounce around to a couple different issues. Now, the reason why we would blame that on their inability to be able to stick on one point or trying to get away to another point. But the problem is that I think we've missed is that I don't think that's actually true. What's going on, in my personal opinion, is that every single issue to him is wrapped up in just a couple issues. It is sprawling and endless, and its tendrils reach every single inch of society. That's what he genuinely believes. That's why he's bringing these types of issues up. That's why everything is wrapped up into this one singular thing, this one singular set of issues, and people not being Christian anymore. Everything in the entire country is wrapped up into these specific issues, and one of the biggest ones is people not really going to church that much anymore, and people like and women not wanting to pump out child after child after child by the time they turn like 16, right? That's his genuine opinion. And yes, sometimes it's undiagnosed ADHD. Yes, sometimes it's mental illness. Yes, it's just like they're conservative. Yes, once again, mental illness, right? But with a lot of these people, it's just all wrapped up into one. It's just one thing that's interconnected. And so that's why they bounce around to different ideas, and that's why they name so many different things as causing this one thing causing all of these different issues, and all of these things sprout from it like mushrooms or something, or like mold spores that are just, it's floating. The moral decay of society is floating in the air, and the fall of Rome is just all permeating inside of us. You can't touch one thing without it's basically like a spider with a spider web. You know, you ever, like, as you were a little kid, take like a blade of grass and then touch one end of a spider web when you saw where the spider is, and then the spider like rushes over? That's basically it. Their ideology is a large sprawling web of things that are so wildly interconnected. And I'm not talking about things like, and some people will talk about things like intersectionality. This isn't intersectionality, how people can be at the intersection of different points of oppression and of like oppress and oppression and identities that can lead to a specific experience that we're going to have to touch on. No, this is just like everything is wrapped up in just a couple issues, and if we solve that core issue, then downstream of society the water will be clean. Well, that's a new thing to do, to poke a spider web with grass. Yeah, you've never done that before? I would say give it a try. It's kind of fun. Like when summer rolls around again, or I guess if we have some southern hemisphere frogs, yeah, give it a try. Like find like a blade of grass, find a little spider web, and just touch one end of it, and just the spider will come running thinking that there's like a bug on it, because it's just a massive web. And if you touch one thing, they'll come sprinting because it's all wrapped up into one massive web of weird political jargon. Seems like a form of simple thinking, tying everything to a particular thing. I like your religion and good versus evil. Yeah, I mean, a lot of conservatives want to boil down society into like a more black and white world, believing things like the idea of the world, the entire world is cruel. So if you're not cruel as well, you're going to be a step behind. Capitalism, at least the capitalism, especially the capitalism that conservatives want to push. Cruelest, most like humanity devoid cretins. Those are the people that get to the top by stepping on more and more human beings and not working together as a person, but working to the detriment of other people to be able to concentrate wealth, money, and resources into your own pocket. It's almost like their politics run more on vibes than genuine beliefs about the world. And this isn't somebody, and I'm not, and when I say that he's, not really pro-American, I'm not just talking about his just genuine, like general social beliefs, because we've talked a lot about that. His, capital P political and electoral beliefs as well is something that he genuinely is super anti-American with, because he is not only, yes, we're going to bring it up, he is not only somebody who was pro Donald Trump when it came to him trying to overturn the election. He was one of the people who was at the forefront of doing it. This guy was pushing for Donald Trump to overturn the election for a long time. I just called President Trump to say this: stay strong and keep fighting, sir. Keep fighting, sir. He's like the number one Trump gagger, dude. As somebody who tried to ban sodomy laws, he's on his knees for Trump 24/7. It's crazy. The nation is depending on your resolve. We must exhaust every available legal remedy to restore Americans' trust and fairness in our election system, he tweeted November 7th, a day after the election. And the same day that posters called the election for Biden outside of Donald Trump. Day later, Johnson spoke to Trump. President Trump called me last night, he tweeted, and I was encouraged to hear the continued resolve to ensure that every legal vote gets properly counted and that all instances of fraud and illegality are investigated and prosecuted. Now, that's one thing, sure, like all these, like the fraud that happened was investigated and the people were punished, but there was no fraud. There was no massive fraud. And the further we move from 2020, the more we realize that. The idea that these voting machines were like the idea that these voting machines have something to do with like Hugo Chavez and in like Venezuela and all these types of things is just like factually untrue. There are people who even tried to say that they were looking for bamboo fibers to see if they were made in China. This is the type of like insanity that was going on. And you may be wondering where the stuff is coming from. It's called cope. All right. It's called cope. Where there is delusion, there is cope. And that's what this just is. If they can just put as many holes in the system and hopefully scrounge up enough votes that maybe Donald Trump can be put over the top by trying to invalidate as many actually valid votes by claiming that there are fraudulent votes as possible. That was the real goal. And thankfully it failed, but they got closer than they ever should have been. And this guy was one of the architects. This guy was the guy who signed to get on this. As Trump's legal challenges faltered, Johnson consistently spread a singular message: it's not over yet. And when Texas filed its last-ditch lawsuit against 4 states on December 8th in 2020, seeking to invalidate their presidential election results and throw out millions of ballots, Johnson quickly revealed that he would be helming the effort to support it with a brief signed by the members of Congress, by Republican members of Congress. 100 Republican members of Congress signed this brief saying that they want like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and I think another state, but I don't remember exactly which one, to throw out all of those votes because they just said it's full of fraud and run by Democrats, and Nancy Pelosi and the Kamala Harris was like filming their ass cheeks on the printer machine and flipping all the votes from Trump to Biden to make sure that he's able to win. Just some stupid bullshit like that. He just couldn't understand. Sorry, he didn't want to understand the fact that they lost, and he didn't want to accept it, because to them there's no reason why Donald Trump should ever lose an election, a Republican should ever lose an election, besides there being fraud. Everyone loves them and everybody likes them, and the American people are totally with them, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be, because they're super pro-American, and the Democrats are evil and stinky, and so if the Democrats win, it must be fraud. It must be fraud. There's no other explanation. We can't be bad. We can't be out of step with the American people. Nothing. We can't be behind on the times. It has to be the fact that, you know, they're just cheating so hard, dude. They're cheating like super hard, man. Why you cheat so hard? Why you cheat so hard? I can't believe you would believe something like this. And he's repping the same guy who's now claiming that he won all 50 states, man. Like, what the hell is this?
We won in the last time 50 states. Think of it. 50 states. We won every state. We then did great in the election. We got 12 million more votes or so. 12 million more votes than we got the first time.
50 states. Everyone, we won all 50 states, every single state, and we got 12 million more votes. Every single state, guys. You know what? This is even greater than Tim Pool's 49 state landslide. 50 state landslide. It's real. It's real, dude. You don't get it. We won 69 states. We won all super 69 states. The silent majority. It seemed like the majority also apparently doesn't speak. They also don't vote because that's why he didn't win. But that's not all the weirdness for this Mike Johnson guy. You may believe that this is the end of the weirdness. I'm going to tell you, no. Not only is this Mike Johnson guy so weird and so strange, okay, that even in some of the clips that I've shown you, I only shown you one of those clips of him speaking on YouTube. The reason is because all of the clips were pulled from YouTube from several years ago, but when he became speaker, he actually deleted those videos, and so you can't watch them on his YouTube channel or YouTube channels that he's affiliated with anymore, because the things that he was saying were so insane that he wants to back off from, specifically saying them, not actually believing them, that he's like going back and cleaning up all of that stuff to prevent him from having a massive political blowback with the insanity of him. But outside of that, not only is he super weird when it comes to that type of stuff, and his weird thing with his child watching his porn intake, but also the fact that he may not be just lying to the American people about that. He may be lying to the American people about his bank account. And the fact that he's been constantly telling Congress and the federal government that he doesn't have one. I'm completely serious with you. He may not have a bank account, or he's hiding a bank account from the government because he's never put down on his financial disclosure filings that he has a bank account or has any money at all. It's so weird, bruh. Must be nice. I guess so. Newly elected Speaker of the House Mike Johnson does not have a bank account, or at least that's what he reports on years of personal finance disclosures dating back to 2017. Over the course of 7 years, Johnson has never reported a checking or savings account in his name, nor has his wife or any of his children. Disclosures show. In fact, he doesn't appear to have any money stashed away in investments at all. So this guy is just reporting that he has no money. He has none. Apparently President Biden pays him in $100 bills in an envelope every month or something, because he's just saying that he just has no bank account, no savings, no investment, no checking, no nothing. He doesn't have a Chime. He doesn't have a PayPal, nothing. He just doesn't have any money anywhere. Apparently, he has no assets. Nothing, I guess. Of course, it's unlikely Johnson doesn't actually have a bank account. What's more likely is that he lives paycheck to paycheck, so much so that he doesn't have enough money to even file in the bank account because it doesn't pass the disclosure limit, which is $5,000. Broke ass. Yeah, there's two things. Either he's rich and he's lying about it, as rich people do, or he's a broke ass or he's like a massive brokey who has no money at all and lives super paycheck to paycheck, but doesn't like to talk about it that much. He lives in a low housing environment. He's lying. He's been in DC working for special interests. Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I know this guy is hiding his bank account more than he's hiding his supposed adopted black son. I cut that part from this segment because I'm not sure where it would fit. But yeah, also he claims to have an adopted black son who he was sad about because people may be racist to him and he thinks racism is bad. You know, the weird thing is that he has all these conservative beliefs, but he actually believes in like institutional racism, which is so weird. And he talks about it because he had an adopted black son who's also an adult now, who also lives in California and has his own family, but he never has shown a picture of them, and he's not in any of his like family photos that he's had that he's shown to people. It's just weird. His porn accountability partner is his adopted black son. No, I mean, it'd be really funny, but no, not actually. What adopted black son? Yeah, he does have an adopted black son, he says. He claims at least. And what's up with Republican congressmen having like a minority adopted kid? Oh, my bad. I was able to find the one picture. I was able to find one picture of his adopted black son. There he is. There's the guy. There's the guy. There's the man. Is that his other son or him? This is him. This is him. That's him. The whole picture is of him and his wife. Here, let me see if I can get this for you. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is the whole picture. This is him and his wife with his adopted black son. That's his baby right there. You can adopt with no bank account, apparently. Well, he says so, at least. That's what he claims. And also he says that he adopted him at 24. What? Yeah, when Mike Johnson was 24. He says that he said he was 24 here with his wife at the time, with his adopted black son. Okay. Let me see if I can find this really quick. Yeah, here it is. And this actually, and you know, the really curious thing is that this has actually put him at odds with other conservatives. Speaking of like Matt Walsh, actually. Full-fledged endorsement of the left's racial narrative from the GOP's new House Speaker. So like some like radical like Christian fascists like Matt Walsh are like, oh yeah, he loves like the whole like no abortion thing, no trans people thing, but what he doesn't like is his views on race, which aren't actually that bad for a conservative if he holds up with this. But I know he would never actually probably vote for a nice like anti-racism bill usually, but you know, here's this.
And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my two 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son Jack has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But
he's so articulate.
Reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says in the first line of the Constitution.
It's actually not necessarily that bad. It's not really that bad, honestly. Coming from a conservative, I would not really like expect this type of stuff from a conservative. Usually they're completely on the opposite side of history and reality with this type of stuff, but I don't know. It's it's not that bad. But obviously people like Matt Walsh are like, this guy is crazy. It's even worse than it looks when you see the full context. He went on PBS a week after George Floyd overdosing and called it an outrage and objectively an act of murder. He thinks that standing on a guy's neck for 9 minutes as he dies under your knee is like a bad thing or something, bro. And then he went on to fully endorse BLM's talking points about policy prescriptions. Completely disqualified. Every conservative celebrating this guy needs to watch this interview. He's crazy and evil. Yeah, we just got screwed. Oh no, he's worse than McCarthy. Oh no, he's pro-black. Yo, what the fuck? They were like all for this guy when he was like abortions cause school shootings. But now he's all like the blacks deserve better, and they're jumping off the train instantly. I hope he changed his mind since then. Scary. Scary. New Speaker of the House. He adopted a 14-year-old African-American boy. Oh, look at this. Oh, we're in the racism section. He watched Blindside or Hoop Dreams and figured this kid would be able to go pro and make him some money. That's great. The statue emojis and the fucking sunglass picture emojis are going crazy in this comment section. White guilt. The new speaker is an Afrocentric sympathizer confirmed from our friend of the stream, Eurasian Emperor. So true, buddy. So true, buddy. Not Jewish, but might as well be Matt Gaetz vibes. At the end of the day, the far right hates Christianity. What's happening to this country? For fuck's sake, we can never win. Why are white people like this? That's voluntary cuckoldry. He's not here to save the white race. He's here to cause problems for Ukraine illegals and illegals at the border. Anything else is superfluous for now. Disgusting. It's all so tiresome. I'm gonna vomit. Oh no, he likes the blacks, dude. What the hell? Chill, Matt. This guy's freaking solid, dude. He's so cool. It's okay if he likes the blacks. It's so crazy how he's like, how it's the giga racist conservatives versus the mildly racist conservatives. They hate us, every single last one. Oh, they're begging that he change his mind on black people. We don't have to agree on everything, guys. This is wild. Well, there's this weird thing with the black son thing. Puts him at odds with other conservatives. Funny stuff. Anyways, he says he doesn't have a bank account or a retirement plan at all. He and his wife said that Johnson reported receiving $10,000 in distribution from a New York Life IRA in 2017, his first year in office, possibly from the retirement account he had listed in the previous year. It's strange to see Speaker Johnson disclose no assets. Lebowitz told the Daily Beast he made over $200,000 last year. That's just from being in Congress. And his wife took home a salary from 2 employers as well. So why isn't there a bank account or any form of savings listed at all? He owes hundreds of that. Johnson also has carried debts over the years, which Lebowitz said would sharpen the question. He owes hundreds of thousands of dollars between a mortgage, personal loan, and home equity of credit. So where did all that money go? If he truly has no bank account and no assets, it raises the questions about his personal financial well-being. So basically, this is the kind of way of saying that the new speaker is a brokey. Look at that face. It's the face of a brokey. He has no money, no clout, no riz, loves the blacks, and thinks evolution causes school shootings. He's just such a weird, he's so weird, dude. They picked one of the weirdest dudes. They picked one of the weirdest dudes to be Speaker of the House. It's so peculiar. Is he maidenless? I mean, he is also divorced, obviously. He has a wife now, but he was divorced. As you can expect from like your average conservative. Don't worry, guys. He still hates women. That's a necessity at this point. That's a part of the plan. That's weird. I thought they love being associated with a black son. Hey, nice one. That's a good one. That's a good meme. Nice meme right there. This is the face of a man looking at his bills, knowing that he has no money, or he's lying about it. I don't know. It's one of the two. He's either completely broke, or he's either completely broke now, or just lying about it. We're just not sure. While Johnson might not have any money in the bank, he does have a relationship with banks. That is, he deals with banks on the liability side. No, he's a brokey, confirmed brokey. With his disclosure revealing 3 debts at Citizen National Bank, a 2013 home mortgage valued at $250,000 and $500,000, a personal loan from 2016 for between $15,000 and $50,000, and a home equity line of credit he took out in 2019 for an additional amount of $15,000 to $50,000. He also appears to have a relationship with bankers. In 2019, Louisiana Banker Association issued a press release showing Johnson meeting with executives from a member of banks, including Citizens National, which owns all of Johnson's liabilities, including the line of credit that he had taken out in the earlier year. Another one of those liabilities in 2016 is a personal loan that he had paid down. That loan was pegged at $50,000 to $100,000 on his first disclosure, went down between $15,000 to $50,000 on the next reporting range. On the second disclosure, neither that debt nor the others have changed since. Poor pilled brokeoid. I guess so. But Johnson's retirement savings do seem to be dwindling. In his first filing, he said that he had between $1,000 and $15,000. That year, Johnson reported earning about $171,000 from legal work at Kitchen's Law and his own practice, in addition to $25,000 salary from the Louisiana House of Representatives. Johnson appears to have carried that retirement account over to the federal program called Thrift Savings Plan. He puts the money into that account, topping between 15 and 50K in 2020. The previous year, he had taken out a credit line on his home. In 2021, he appears to have crashed out the retirement account entirely and does not appear to have all his and it does not appear at all in his 2022 report. Johnson also doesn't list any accounts with the Congressional Federal Credit Union. So yeah, it seems like he might actually just be a brokey. He may just have no money, no retirement account, a lot of debt, and that's just kind of it. Who knows? Nobody does, because he doesn't want to file he doesn't file having a bank account ever. Please be an undercover murderer. Can you imagine that he's like the Louisiana drowner? How he's like, there's a string of drownings in his neck of the woods in Louisiana, and he's behind all of them every time he goes home. The drownings all correlate to whenever he flies back into the district from Washington. Holy crap. And he doesn't file a bank account because he buys all his murder tools with cash money. Oh my lord, this is very possible. But that is all I know right now about our new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Complete freak weirdo who's like completely all over the place, and I have no clue how to put him down. Besides, at the end of the day, he's a Republican who's voted against minority rights while holding some good minority rights, possibly, that it put him at odds with many of the conservatives. That's just who and what he is. Weird boy, but we'll see how it goes. Possibly leverage in a very vulnerable way financially. Yeah, it's very possible, and that's like the big thing that's important with this. It's not just like silly, is that if he actually is a brokey, that makes him very vulnerable as the third most powerful person in the United States of America when it comes to line of secession, at least, of being manipulated when it comes to foreign governments, agents, and other people with money. Because if he has a lot of debt and he needs to pay it down, and somebody's offering him money to do something that could go against the American people or something, it's likely that he might do it. It's very possible that he might do it. So, but that's what we know for now. I'll keep up to date with it. I'll update you if I found anything new. Come here. Oh. Hi. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.